Daddy, I don't want to be brave anymore. I'm so tired of pretending I'm okay with never walking again. 25-year-old Astrid Whitmore's voice cracked as she stared out the mansion window at the gardens she could no longer walk through. Her father, billionaire CEO Harrison Whitmore, stood behind her wheelchair, his hands trembling on the handles. "Sweetheart, the doctors said there's nothing more they can do," Astrid whispered. "That the nerve damage from the accident is permanent. That I should accept my new reality." She wiped her eyes roughly. "But how do I accept that I'll never dance again, never walk on a beach, never feel whole?" Harrison had no answer. 3 years since the car accident that had stolen his daughter's mobility. 3 years of the world's best specialists, experimental treatments, physical therapy that left her sobbing in pain. 3 years of watching his brilliant, vibrant daughter retreat further into herself, trapped in a body that felt like a prison. He'd built an empire, but couldn't fix the one thing that mattered. That autumn, Harrison hired a new groundskeeper for their estate, a decision made by his property manager, barely worth mentioning. 33-year-old Beckett Thorne arrived with calloused hands, sun-weathered skin, and the quiet manner of someone used to being overlooked. He'd been a farmer until drought destroyed his family's land, forcing him to find work wherever he could. Astrid noticed him first on a gray October morning, working in the garden below her window. He moved differently than the other staff, slower, more intentional, stopping occasionally to simply observe the plants as if listening to something only he could hear. "Who's that?" she asked Mrs. Lane, her nurse. "New groundskeeper, Beckett something, quiet man, keeps to himself." Astrid watched him work for weeks, a strange comfort in his steady presence. While everyone else in her life moved with urgent purpose, doctors rushing between appointments, her father's constant phone calls, therapists pushing her toward goals that felt impossible, Beckett simply existed peacefully in his work. One afternoon, her wheelchair got stuck in the garden gravel. She'd insisted on going outside alone, desperate for independence, and now sat stranded, furious and humiliated. Beckett appeared from behind the rose bushes. "Need a hand, miss?" "I need new legs," Astrid snapped, then immediately felt ashamed. "I'm sorry. Yes, please." He freed the wheel easily, then knelt beside her chair, not standing over her like everyone else did, but meeting her at eye level. "My sister was in a chair for 5 years after a riding accident. She hated when people looked down at her." Astrid's breath caught. "Was?" "She walks now, with a cane, and not far, but she walks." He paused. "Mind if I ask what happened to you?" Something about his genuine curiosity, free of pity or discomfort, made Astrid answer honestly. She told him about the accident, the surgeries, the doctors who'd given up, about feeling like a broken thing everyone had stopped believing in. Beckett listened without interrupting, his weathered face thoughtful. When she finished, he said something unexpected. "My grandfather was a horse whisperer. Folks said he had magic hands, but it wasn't magic. It was patience. He'd say, sometimes healing ain't about forcing things. It's about listening to what's broken and giving it room to remember how to be whole." "The doctors say my nerves are too damaged to remember." "Doctors know medicine," Beckett said carefully, "but they don't know you." He stood, brushing dirt from his knees. "If you ever want to try something different, not therapy, not treatment, just trying, let me know. No promises, no pressure. Just two people being stubborn together." Over the following weeks, something unexpected developed. Astrid started spending time in the garden while Beckett worked. They talked about everything except her disability. His family's farm, her abandoned ballet dreams, books they'd both loved, the way sunlight changed the color of autumn leaves. One morning, Beckett said casually, "Want to touch the earth? Real soil, not through gloves?" It seemed simple, but when Astrid's fingers sank into the cool dirt of a flower bed, something awakened, a connection she'd forgotten in 3 years of sterile medical facilities and sanitized therapy rooms. "My grandfather used to say that we're not separate from the earth, we're part of it. When we're hurt, sometimes we just need to remember that connection." "Are you saying dirt will heal me?" Astrid asked, half smiling. "No, miss. I'm saying maybe you've been trying so hard to fix what's broken that you forgot what still works." He started small, asking her to feel textures, rough bark, smooth stones, the soft give of moss, to close her eyes and describe what she sensed. Then, with her father's nervous permission, he began something the therapists hadn't tried, working with her legs not as broken machines to be repaired, but as parts of herself still worthy of attention and care. "Flex your toes," he'd say gently, his hand supporting her foot. "Don't force it, just ask them nicely if they remember how." "This is ridiculous," Astrid would protest, even as she tried.
"Maybe," Beckett agreed. "Or maybe the ridiculous things work because we stopped fighting so hard." Harrison watched this unlikely friendship with bewilderment and growing hope. This uneducated farmer was reaching his daughter in ways 100 specialists hadn't. Not through expertise, but through simple, genuine belief. 3 months in, Astrid felt something, a tiny sensation in her left foot when Beckett pressed a certain point on her ankle. She gasped. Did you feel that?" he asked, his own voice trembling with hope. I think so. Do it again." He did, again and again, that faint tingling, like a distant signal fighting through static. Astrid started crying, not from sadness, but from shock that her body could still surprise her. "There you are," Beckett whispered. "I knew you were still in there." Progress came slowly, frustratingly, heartbreakingly slowly. A twitch in her toes, a slight flex in her ankle. Sensation returning in patches, unreliable and faint. Traditional doctors were skeptical, but couldn't explain it. Harrison brought in specialists who confirmed incremental nerve regeneration, minimal but present. "It's her believing she can," one neurologist said reluctantly. "Sometimes the mind's role in recovery is stronger than we acknowledge." 6 months after that first conversation in the garden, Beckett knelt before Astrid's wheelchair one morning and said something that made her heart stop. "Let me try to help you stand, just for a second. I'll hold you the whole time." "Beckett, I haven't stood in 3 years." "I know, but I also know you're stronger than you think, and I'll catch you if you fall, I promise." With Harrison watching, tears streaming down his face, Beckett helped Astrid to her feet. She collapsed immediately, her legs unable to bear weight, but Beckett caught her easily. "Again," she demanded, fierce determination replacing fear. They tried every day. For weeks, then months, Beckett supporting her weight while her legs remembered, slowly, painfully, what they'd once known. Harrison hired a physical therapist to work with them, but it was Beckett's patient presence that made the difference. One spring morning, a full year after he'd first asked her to touch the soil, Astrid took 3 steps. Beckett's hand steadied her, but her legs did the work. 3 steps before she exhausted herself, but 3 steps that proved the impossible wasn't. "I'm walking," she sobbed into his shoulder. "I'm actually walking." "You are," Beckett whispered, his own eyes wet. "You never forgot how. You just needed someone to believe it with you." By summer, Astrid walked short distances with forearm crutches. By autumn, she managed the garden path using only a cane. The medical community called it unprecedented, severe nerve damage reversing through unconventional methods, likely aided by youth, determination, and the body's mysterious capacity for healing when given proper support. Harrison knew the truth was simpler and more profound. His daughter had needed someone who saw her not as broken, but as strong, someone patient enough to walk beside her while she found her way back. One evening, as autumn leaves fell again, Astrid stood in the garden, actually stood on her own feet, and looked at Beckett pruning the roses. "You know what you gave me?" she asked softly. "What's that, miss?" "You stopped letting me hide behind brave. You let me be tired, angry, scared. And then you whispered, 'Let me try,' and showed me that accepting help isn't the same as accepting defeat." Beckett smiled, that quiet smile she'd grown to treasure. "You did the hard part. I just held your hand while you remembered how to hold yourself." "No," Astrid said, taking a few careful steps toward him. "You reminded me that healing isn't always about doctors and treatments. Sometimes it's about dirt under your fingernails, patient hands, and someone who believes in you when you've stopped believing in yourself." She stood before him now, balanced on her own 2 feet, shaky but real. "Thank you for whispering, 'Let me try,' when everyone else had given up." Beckett's eyes shone. "Thank you for letting me, for trusting that sometimes the answer comes from the last place you'd expect, from dirt and patience, and refusing to accept that broken means finished." And as Harrison watched from the window, he understood what wealth could never buy. The simple, profound gift of someone seeing your daughter not as his damaged princess, but as a strong woman worth believing in until she could believe in herself again.